What if everything you were told about retirement was only half the story? You saved, you sacrificed, you said no to the vacations, the cars, the dinners out. You followed the rules, maxed the accounts, trusted the system. And then one day you finally arrived at the edge of your working years and realized no one had ever taught you what to actually do next. That gap, the dangerous silence between accumulation and spending, is exactly what Jean Chatzky's The Forever Paycheck was written to close. Two specific questions will follow you through this entire masterclass and only resolve near the end. The first is why the shift from accumulation to income is the real challenge nobody prepared you for. The second is what single psychological trap keeps even the most disciplined savers from actually enjoying the retirement they earned. Jean Chatzky is one of the most trusted financial voices in America. For 25 years, she served as the on-camera financial editor for NBC's Today Show, and she currently writes the Chatzky to the Rescue column for ARP, the magazine, and leads hermoney.com, a financial community built for over 500,000 women. She did not write this book from a theory. She wrote it from the front lines of real people's real financial fears. According to the book's research, 61% of adults are worried they will not have enough money in retirement, and 84% of Gen Xers describe themselves as concerned or terrified about having no more paychecks. This book was written for all of them, and it was written for you. By the time this masterclass ends, you will understand why saving was never the hardest part, why the shift from accumulation to income is the real challenge no one prepares you for, and how to engineer a paycheck that never stops. Subscribe to the Book Vault right now because we release strategic, deeply researched analyses designed to give ambitious thinkers a genuine unfair advantage. Like this video, leave your biggest takeaway in the comments, and settle in, because what Chatzky reveals about the psychology of retirement spending alone is worth the next 20 minutes of your life. The Strategic Breakdown. Pillar 1. The Crisis No One Warned You About. The first thing this book does, inside the chapter titled Pillar 1, The Crisis No One Warned You About, is name the crisis hiding in plain sight inside American retirement planning. Chatzky opens by establishing something most people never confront directly. A comfortable retirement is supposedly the American dream, yet only 8% of people describe it as easy to achieve. That number is not a data point. It is an indictment. Decades of advice focused on saving more, investing smarter, and delaying gratification, but no one built a clear bridge from the saving side to the spending side. Here is the brutal truth most financial advisors never say out loud. Getting money into retirement accounts is a skill most people eventually master, at least partially. But converting that pile of savings into a steady, reliable, psychologically comfortable income stream, that is an entirely different skill, and almost no one is teaching it. The industry built tools for accumulation. It never built a manual for distribution. And for millions of people approaching retirement right now, that gap is terrifying. Chatzky frames this as a solvable engineering problem, not a luck problem. The book, written in collaboration with ARP, opens by documenting who is most afraid. The 74% of non-retired baby boomers worried about running out. The 79% of millennials who feel the same weight. These are not irresponsible people. Many of them did everything right for decades. They are afraid because no one handed them the second half of the manual. And what I'm about to tell you is the part of this book that most people never even reach. That second half of the manual exists. Chatzky calls it the Forever Paycheck. And the single most important shift the book makes early on is this. It reframes retirement not as the end of earning, but as the beginning of engineering. You stop chasing a bigger number and start building a reliable system. The anxiety does not come from having too little. Often it comes from not knowing how to use what you already have. And that realization changes everything about how you approach the years ahead. But the deeper problem is even more surprising than that. Pillar 2. The Psychology of the Paycheck Effect. We now enter the chapter titled Pillar 2, The Psychology of the Paycheck Effect, and it fundamentally reshapes how you think about money and behavior in retirement. The research Chatzky presents reveals something almost no mainstream financial advice acknowledges. People who receive their retirement income as a steady monthly paycheck behave completely differently around money than those who manage a lump sum. They spend more confidently. They experience less anxiety. And many find they can spend double with no risk of running out. Think about what that means for a moment. The structure of how money arrives changes the psychology of how it is used. A retiree staring at a $600,000 portfolio sees a shrinking number every time they make a withdrawal. Every dollar spent feels like a permanent loss. But a retiree receiving $3,800 per month from a combination of guaranteed income sources does not see a number going down. They see income arriving. The difference in emotional experience is enormous. Most people think this distinction is minor. In reality, it is the entire game. The deeper layer most readers miss is that this is not just a feeling. The research Chatzky site shows that guaranteed income in retirement is associated not only with higher spending confidence, but also with better health outcomes, lower rates of disability, and a substantially longer lifespan. A paycheck does not just fund a retirement, it appears to extend it. The psychological security of knowing money will keep arriving changes how people eat, how they sleep, how they engage with the world, and ultimately how long they live. The question is how to build that paycheck in the first place. This is where mainstream advice collapses. Standard retirement guidance says, save a big number, withdraw 4% per year, and hope the market cooperates. But Chatzky is after something different. She is after the emotional architecture of financial security, not just the math. And late at night, when you put your phone down and wonder whether your number is big enough, whether you will be okay, whether the plan will hold, the paycheck effect is the answer to that quiet anxiety. The next section reveals where that paycheck actually comes from, and it is more engineerable than you think. Pillar 3. Knowing your money personality. One of the most original contributions this book makes to the retirement conversation is a concept Chatzky calls money personality, and we arrive at it now inside the chapter titled Pillar 3. Knowing your money personality. The premise is straightforward, but its implications are profound. The right retirement income strategy is not the same for everyone. Different people carry different psychological relationships with money, different tolerances for risk, different fears, different motivations, and different ideas of what a good life costs and feels like. Ask yourself something right now. When markets drop, do you feel a sharp physical anxiety, or do you watch the numbers dispassionately and wait? When you have excess cash, do you immediately move it somewhere, or does it sit in your checking account for weeks? When you imagine retirement, do you see freedom, or do you see a slow financial suffocation? Those reactions are not random. Chatzky argues they are the fingerprints of your money personality, and they must be understood before you build any income strategy around them. The book uses quizzes, real-world examples, and stories from actual people to help readers identify where they fall on the spectrum. From those who love market participation and want their income strategy to include upside potential, to those who would sacrifice returns entirely for the certainty of knowing next month's number. Inside the vault, we call this the self-awareness layer, because the most sophisticated retirement plan that does not match your psychology will be abandoned the moment fear arrives. A simpler plan you can emotionally execute is always worth more than a technically perfect plan you cannot live inside. But here's the truth that most people never face. Without the right income architecture, even $1 million portfolio can feel like a trap. What comes next is the part of the book where that architecture is finally laid bare, and it is the single section that turns anxiety into a concrete, solvable blueprint. Chatzky insists that the process of designing your forever paycheck must begin with this internal inventory, not with product selection or portfolio allocation. Most financial advisors start with assets. Chatzky starts with the person. And that sequence reversal is quiet but devastating in its implications, because if you build before you understand yourself, you will build the wrong thing. And the wrong thing will fail you precisely at the moment you need it most. In a market correction, in a health crisis, in the middle of the night when the fear comes. Pillar 4. The building blocks of your forever paycheck. We now reach the strategic core of the book, the chapter called Pillar 4. The building blocks of your forever paycheck, where Chatzky lays out the actual financial instruments that can transform your accumulated savings into a permanent, reliable income stream. She approaches this section not as a product salesperson, but as a strategist mapping the full terrain. The forever paycheck in her model is not one thing. It is a combination of income sources layered together intelligently based on your specific situation, personality, and goals. Social Security sits at the foundation. Chatzky dedicates serious attention to the decision of when to claim because the stakes are enormous and the conventional wisdom is frequently wrong. Claiming at 62 feels like a reward for years of work, but delaying to 70 can dramatically increase your monthly payment for the rest of your life. For people in good health, with longevity in their family history, that delay can represent one of the highest return financial decisions available. This is where human psychology becomes dangerous. The early claim feels safe. The math says otherwise. The bucket strategy enters here as one of Chatzky's key structural tools. The concept divides retirement assets into separate pools, one holding 1 to 2 years of living expenses in cash, one holding medium-term investments, and one holding long-term growth assets. This structure creates psychological insulation. When markets fall, you are not touching the growth bucket. You live from the cash bucket while the rest recovers. The vault perspective on this is different from the way most people hear it explained, because the purpose of the bucket strategy is not purely mathematical. It is emotional architecture. It is how you sleep at night while markets do what markets do. Annuities complete the picture for many people, and Chatzky treats them with the nuanced intelligence they deserve. An annuity that converts a portion of savings into guaranteed lifetime income is, in essence, a private pension. It recreates the paycheck effect mechanically. The research she presents shows that having guaranteed income actually frees people to invest the rest of their portfolio more aggressively because the downside risk of the market no longer threatens their basic security. That thought might feel paradoxical at first, but the logic is exact. When you know the floor will hold, you can actually afford to reach higher. And what comes next is where everything you have heard so far finally connects into something you can actually use. Pillar 5, Designing the Life Your Paycheck Funds. We now enter the final strategic chapter titled Pillar 5, Designing the Life Your Paycheck Funds, and it reframes the entire project of retirement in a way that most financial writers never attempt. Chatzky's argument in this final strategic section is this: a forever paycheck is not the destination. The life it funds is. And you cannot engineer the right income stream until you have actually defined what you are engineering it for. Most people skip this step entirely. They think about the number without ever thinking about the days. If you leave with nothing else from this video, let it be this: retirement without a vision is just stopping. The research Chatzky draws on throughout the book shows that people who retire into a clear, intentional picture of their days, with purpose, relationships, activity, and meaning, experience dramatically better outcomes than those who simply stop working and wait to see what happens. The paycheck provides the financial floor, but the life design fills the room above it. One without the other is incomplete. This is where the book reveals something most summaries skip entirely. Chatzky introduces the concept of building your retirement vision before you build your retirement plan. Define what the ideal retirement actually looks like: where you live, what you do, who you spend time with, what brings you meaning, what you spend freely on, and what you do not care about at all. That vision tells you what your paycheck needs to cost. And once you know what it needs to cost, the entire engineering problem becomes specific, solvable, and yours. This is not soft advice. It is the strategic backbone of the entire book. At this point, the blueprint feels complete, the crisis diagnosed, the paycheck effect understood, your money personality mapped, the building blocks assembled, and the life vision in place. But just when the lesson seems fully delivered, Chatzky adds one final dimension that changes how you hold every previous insight. The real enemy in retirement is not running out of money. It is the psychological prison of refusing to spend it. The real forever paycheck is the one you finally let yourself cash. Key lessons and insights. Lesson 1. The accumulation trap is real and dangerous. The first lesson this book teaches us, and it arrives with the force of a long overdue diagnosis, is what we call Lesson 1. The accumulation trap is real and dangerous. Saving money and spending it wisely are two completely separate skills that require completely separate education. Almost everything the financial industry teaches is about accumulation. Get more into your 401k, max the IRA, compound over time. Those are real, valuable lessons. But they are only the first half of a two-act play. The second act, distribution, is where most people discover they were never given a script. The practical implication of this is urgent. If you are 40, 50, or 60 years old, the time to begin learning the distribution skill is not the day you retire. It is now. Chatzky's book is the preparation for that moment. The people who struggle hardest in retirement are often the most disciplined savers because they applied the accumulation mindset to the spending years and felt guilty or terrified every time they touched the principle. Understanding that a new skill is required, not a new amount of savings, changes everything. Lesson 2. Your psychology must match your strategy. The second lesson that lives at the heart of this book, and one that most financial plans dangerously ignore, is what we call Lesson 2. Your psychology must match your strategy. The right retirement income strategy is the one you can actually emotionally execute, not the one that looks best on paper. Money personality is not a soft concept. It is the filter through which every financial decision passes. A strategy that triggers panic every time the market moves will be abandoned. A strategy that feels psychologically stable will be held through difficulty. This lesson demands something uncomfortable for most people. Honest self-examination. What is your actual relationship with uncertainty? With loss? With numbers going down? Chatzky builds quizzes and frameworks into the book specifically to facilitate this examination because she knows that most people skip it. They go straight to the instruments, they skip the inventory, and then they wonder why they cannot sleep at night even with a good plan. The discipline here is not financial, it is psychological, and it must come first. Lesson 3. Guaranteed income changes behavior, not just math. The third lesson this book delivers, and perhaps the most counterintuitive insight in the entire framework, is what we call Lesson 3. Guaranteed income changes behavior, not just math. Guaranteed income does not just improve your balance sheet, it improves your life. The research Chatzky presents shows that people with a guaranteed income floor, whether from Social Security, an annuity, or a pension, spend more freely, report greater well-being, experience better health outcomes, and live longer. The paycheck is not just financial protection, it is psychological permission to actually enjoy the years you worked decades to reach. The application here is strategic. Before selecting any retirement income product, ask yourself whether it creates the paycheck effect for you. Does it deliver reliable, predictable income that arrives regardless of what the market does? If yes, it contributes to the foundation. If it is entirely dependent on market performance, it contributes to the growth layer, not the security layer. Knowing the difference between these two functions and building both deliberately is the engineering insight the book asks you to carry out of every page. Lesson 4. The life vision must come before the financial plan. The fourth lesson, and the one that answers the first question we planted at the beginning, why the shift from accumulation to income is the real challenge nobody prepared you for, is what we call Lesson 4. The life vision must come before the financial plan. Retirement planning without a life vision is like building a house without knowing who will live in it. The very act of defining what you want your days to look like forces you to shift from accumulating for its own sake to building a specific, meaningful, costed future. That is the bridge nobody gave you, and Chatzky places it directly in your hands. The 7-day action at the end of this video will speak to this directly, but the lesson itself is this. Sit down this week and write out what you actually want your days to look like. Not what you think you should want, not what your neighbor is planning, what you actually want. Where you wake up, what you do before noon, who is around you, what you spend money on without hesitation. That document becomes the blueprint, and the blueprint is what transforms a retirement plan from a financial exercise into a genuinely well-lived life. Lesson 5. Permission to spend is the final piece. The fifth lesson, and the one that resolves the deeper question this video has been quietly building towards since the first paragraph, is what we call Lesson 5. Permission to spend is the final piece. The real work of retirement is not building the paycheck, it is giving yourself permission to cash it. Chatzky documents clearly that the most common failure mode in retirement is not running out of money. It is dying with far more than intended because the fear of spending never truly released. People who saved well often cannot switch the dial. They built an identity around restraint, and in retirement, that identity becomes a cage. Remember the second question we opened with, the one about the psychological trap that keeps disciplined savers from enjoying their retirement. This is it. No one warned you that discipline, the very quality that made you financially successful, could become the obstacle standing between you and the retirement you deserve. The Forever Paycheck is Chatzky's answer to that trap. When income arrives reliably, the fear diminishes. When the fear diminishes, you actually live. And that, ultimately, is the entire point of every dollar you ever saved. The vault closing. This book is about money, but it is really about time. Every dollar in a retirement account represents a day of work that will never come back. A morning you got up when you did not feel like it. An evening you chose discipline when pleasure was available. Jean Chatzky's The Forever Paycheck is not just a financial manual. It is a declaration that all of that time deserves a worthy second chapter, one that is funded, one that is confident, one that is actually lived, not managed from a distance in quiet, anxious calculation. Your specific 7-day action is this. Before this week ends, open a blank document and write a paragraph describing what your ideal Tuesday looks like at age 72. Not the financial number, the actual day. Where are you? What did you do at 9 in the morning? Who did you have lunch with? What did you spend money on and feel nothing but pleasure about? That paragraph will tell you more about what your retirement needs to fund than any spreadsheet ever will. And once you know what you are funding, building the Forever Paycheck becomes an engineering problem you could actually solve. The Book Vault exists for exactly this kind of conversation, the kind that does not just hand you information, but hand you clarity. If this masterclass shifted how you think about your financial future, the most powerful thing you can do right now is subscribe, like this video, and drop your biggest takeaway in the comments below. Tell us what landed. Tell us what changed, because the Book Vault is not just a channel. It is a community of people who believe that the right knowledge applied with intention is the most powerful unfair advantage available to anyone willing to seek it. See you inside the next vault.